Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of For the Classical Guitarist. In this video, I'm going to be telling you who wrote the piece Romanza because that's one of the biggest mysteries in the classical guitar world. So if you want to find out, stay tuned and let's get started. So the first thing that I want to say is not only do we not know who this piece is written by, but we actually don't even know the name of this piece. As you guys might know, this piece has tons of different names, and yes, they're all kind of similar, but here's just a few of them. And yes, they all pretty much imply the exact same thing, but they are different names, and there's honestly a ton more. Those are just the popular ones that I found when looking it up. So far, we don't know the author, and we don't really know what it's even called. But what do we know? Well, what we know is that the piece was written around the late 1800s, and how we know that is because we do have recordings of the piece from around 1897 to around 1901, somewhere in there. Now, I know that you clicked on this video to find out who wrote the piece, but before I can tell you that, though, I want to tell you who we used to think wrote it. And that would be people such as Francisco Tárrega, Fernando Sor, Antonio Rubira, Narciso Yepes, and Vincent Gomez, as well as it also being a folk song. So let's start by talking about why people think it was made by Fernando Sor. So there is a very, very early manuscript of this piece that was found, and even though that manuscript has no author, on the bottom of it, it does say Melodia de Sor, which implies that it was a melody of Sor's. So problem solved, right? We know who wrote it. Not necessarily. People think that this wasn't written by Sor for a few reasons. Number one, it doesn't sound like anything he would have written ever. So the next big name composer that people oftentimes think wrote this would be Francisco Tárrega. Now this one actually makes a lot of sense, unlike Sor's, because Francisco Tárrega was alive during the whole entire time, and he was writing for the guitar and concertizing when it was believed this piece was written and when it was being recorded. And on top of that, it sounds like something that he might have written. You know, it definitely has that romantic, obviously, tone to it, you know? And it sounds kind of similar to other pieces he's written in the past. Check out his Etude in E minor and you'll see some similarities. Okay, so now let's move on to the one person on this list that you might not have been familiar with at all, and that's totally fine because I had no idea who it was either, and that would be the guitarist Antonio Rubira. Now, why people don't know who he is, my guess is because when I was trying to look up more information about him, I couldn't find a single thing, not a photo, not a biography, anything, besides that people think he maybe wrote Romanza. That's the only thing he seems to be known for. But why people think that is because there is another manuscript from way back when, the same time as the other manuscript that was possibly credited towards Sor, but this one was credited towards him. So far, personally, I would say that he is our best bet. So now a name on this list that you might have been familiar with is the guitarist Narciso Yepes, and many people seem to think he actually wrote the piece. And the reason why people think that is because in 1952 he played this piece for a movie called The Forbidden Games, and he actually listed himself as the author as well as the player. Now this being a movie, of course, achieved way more success than any classical guitar record or recording ever would. Narciso Yepes obviously wanted to profit off of this, and he told everyone that he was the author, and he even had a backstory to it. His backstory said that when he was 7 years old, he wrote this piece for his mother and played it for her in a concert. And then later on in life heard somebody playing it in a different concert when he was 13 years old or so, and he said that they must have stole his piece, but he knew it was his. But one thing that doesn't make sense is Narciso Yepes was 7 years old in 1932, and the piece was recorded in the late 1800s. When it was recorded, if you do the math, Narciso Yepes wasn't even born yet. So how could he have written the piece that was recorded before he was born? I don't know. Anyway, since then, Yepes went on to say that he isn't actually the author, but he's just the one who arranged it for the movie, which I guess is kind of true. I think it was kind of just a way to cover up his tracks after being caught. So if you guys think Yepes wrote it, I can tell you right now that he definitely didn't. So now the final name on this list, also a guitarist that you might be familiar with, would be the guitarist Vicente Gomez. And basically, it's a very similar story to Yepes, where basically he just recorded it for a movie. This movie was the movie Blood and Sand, and basically he just claimed himself to be the author. This one isn't as widely believed as the Yepes one, probably because the movie wasn't as well known, and also I think personally Yepes is a much bigger name in the guitar field. But there are probably some people who believe this, so if you believe that, definitely know, just like the Yepes one, it's fake. Wait, now there is one more thing that I said before when I was talking about the list, and that would be it's just a folk song. So it's believed that this song also just has origins as a Ukrainian folk song, and you'll see what I mean. Check this out. Here's the folk song, and see if you can hear the melody of Romanza inside of it. Now, if you can hear it, good for you, but just in case you can't, here's the same melody being played on the guitar with an accompaniment very similar to Romanza, and you'll definitely hear the similarity. Okay, so yes, definitely pretty similar. So let's take a look at what we have so far. We either have it was written by Yepes or Vicente Gomez, it was written by either Francisco Tarrega or Fernando Sor, it was just a folk song, or it was maybe even written by a no-name guy called Antonio Rubira. Either way, is it any of these? So finally, the reason why you clicked on this video in the first place, I can tell you who wrote Romanza. After digging through manuscript after manuscript, reading book after book, and listening to recording after recording, I think I finally got the answer for you. The author of Romanza isn't any of the names listed on this here. It's not Francisco Tarrega, it's not Fernando Sor, it's not even no-name Antonio Rubira. The author of Romanza is